Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be?
Welcome back to the 27th. This is a setup analysis for the Caterham 360R Supersport, one of 4 Caterhams featured in AMS2. We're going to be discussing the ins and outs of this car and why in particular you should be driving it if it's not part of your repertoire already. The Caterhams as we know them in game are modern replicas of the Lotus 7, a lightweight, 2-seat open-top sports car designed by famous car designer Colin Chapman in the 1950s. Since the early 1970s, Caterham cars have been producing road and track versions, and they are still going strong to this day. The 360R Supersport you see here is one of 4 variations available in AMS2, the main difference between the 4 being horsepower. If you want to sort them, the Supersport is second in line in that regard. On track, the one word you could use to describe them is purity. No cup holders, no cell phone chargers, no fancy electronic aids. For 60 years, this design has been about driving only. You, the car, and the road. That's it. Besides downforce and aero, everything about driving a car is featured here. Everything you could possibly want in a driving experience, the Caterham allows you to play with it. Most cars you come across in game, you can tell the difference if they have oversteer or understeer, and you may try to tune it out. With this car, you decide if it has understeer or oversteer by how you drive it for the most part. As far as the setup is concerned, I really hate to say this, but it's not the point of this car. That's not to say that I didn't change anything, but it is to say that the changes you make are strictly for preference and not really about increasing track times. For me, it's all about helping me find a smooth corner entry with not too much bite. I want to find the max brake point and have the car follow the wheel inputs without sliding or turning in too much. Mid-corner, I wanted the car to rotate nicely and be forgiving enough to allow for slight wheel adjustments without unbalancing the car, so you can comfortably start to apply the throttle. Through the corner exit phase, it's all about that dance on the edge. Not too much power slide to make it bog down, not too little, just enough. We can't change the springs with the car, but we can change the dampers and ARBs, so those were our primary tools. Let's talk about damping in a little more detail. For me, I like a nice balanced damping package, and that's where I leave my base builds so that if I decide the car might need a little more or less here or there, grip or understeer or oversteer, depending on a specific corner of a specific track, I know we're starting from a good place. Looking at the default build, and this will apply for many cars in AMS2, the damping package is set up for more initial wheel input grip on corner entry, or in other words, oversteer characteristics. On corner exit, they are set up for stability, or more understeer characteristics. Without telemetry, dampers are one of the most difficult things to tune in a car, but there will be signs something is amiss. If you are, say, at the end of a trail braking phase and into the mid-cornering phase, when you're coming off the brake and starting to throttle and the car feels wobbly, or all of a sudden grips up or gets loose or back and forth, chances are the dampers are causing the problem. If this is the case, I would go back to the setup screen and equalize them, bump and rebound on each of the axles. Click one up, the other down, bump or rebound, whatever it may be, have them meet in the middle. If there are crazy differences between the front and the rear, first check the springs. The rule of thumb is stiffer dampers on the axle with stiffer springs and vice versa. Get rid of the wonkiness first, then you can find a guide or watch my advanced setup video and you can start to tune them on a per track basis. Always remember, dampers work in tandems or pairs and trios. When one is compressing, another must be decompressing. I'm not saying the Caterham's dampers were bad, but I did balance them like I do with most cars. The ARBs, on the other hand, are a great tool to use, and I think they're the most user-friendly of all the setup changes on the suspension tab. They affect all of the phases of the corner, but mostly mid-corner, and they are simple enough. If you like a little more understeer, stiffen the front ARB and soften the rear. If you like more oversteer, soften the front ARB and stiffen the rear. It's pretty easy. So let's take a look at the telemetry to see what we end up with. And here we are once again with Racing Sim Tools, and as usual I register a 3-lap session with the defaults and a 3-lap session with the customs, and it looks like I was able to save a little under half a second with the custom package. But like I said, this isn't necessarily about track time. It's about how the car feels in your hands and being able to make it more, come to your driving style as much as it possibly can. They're always going to be a Caterham, and they're a really great car to learn on. But here I'm going to just highlight some of the things that of the changes I made, so that you can see that they're actually reflected in how the car responds. So here we're looking at the roll bar on the modal analysis page, and by clicking the custom you can see that the roll is mitigated a lot less, and this is due to the stiffer ARB package front and rear. Next we're going to move into the lateral stiffness distribution. This is where I'm going to show you where that comes into play. If I can make this look better. No, I cannot. Okay, so the red is the lateral stiffness distribution here at the top graph once again. And lateral stiffness basically means how stiff the car is in comparison to each of the axles. So stiffer on the front, or stiffer on the rear, softer on the front, softer on the rear, and how you balance the two. This balance between stiffness in the front is the stiffness distribution, and this helps the car naturally rotate through a corner. So generally speaking, when you're setting up a lateral stiffness distribution for a car, if you want it to be, completely 50% neutral, around 50% in lateral stiffness distribution would be the goal. What a surprise. But you always want a little bit more stiffness to the front, and the reason being is because the rears, usually in rear-wheel drive cars, the rears provide the traction, and you have the throttle with it. So having a little bit more understeer characteristics tuned into the car actually is the more balanced approach. And right here at the 55% line is what we'd be shooting for, and you can see with the default package it's right around there. It's close, but distinguish it with the custom package, and you can see with the blue it's right along where that 50% is, at least in a lot more areas. So that means when you're mid-corner, the car's going to want to turn a little bit more. I felt that that's helpful because you always want to get on the throttle earlier with momentum cars like the Caterham, or at least a Supersport. So being able to rotate the car easier naturally allows you to get on the throttle just that split second faster. Looking next at the damper histograms, and like I said before, as usual, the default packages are much more rebound biased. When you're looking at damper histograms, it's going to reflect, I guess, what you would see on the setup page. They have a lot more rebound, so a lot more rebound stiffness, and this reflects in the histograms here quite obviously. The higher bars are on the left side of the graph, and the right side of the graph has lower bars. Higher bars means stiffer. So what we did is we balanced them out as we do, and this is what we came up with. Obviously, this is a symmetrical build. So when you're going around tracks like Imola, you're going to have little variations. Let's see if we can find another one. Sometimes you'll get bimodials if there's a lot of curb work, but you can see that generally speaking, they're a lot more balanced than the default package. Here, see, there's a lot more rebound in all of the laps that we did. So when you're looking at histograms, it's sort of like not one lap is going to be perfect, so you want to look at them all sort of at the same time and kind of get the gist of where they are. So let's look at that. That's all of them clicked at the same time. That was kind of like mind-blowing right there, psychedelic. You can actually see here that it's more balanced. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go into the differential, and this is something that I observed after the fact that I thought was rather interesting, just so that you know about how the Caterhams drive, and this applies to the default as well as the custom. Oh my gosh, can I find the differential tab? Thank you very much. All right, so now this graph here is the wheel slip of the rear, wheel slip differences, and the Caterham is absolutely locked. If you look at the wheel slip difference here between the left and the right, and you can see there's only a couple instances where the rear tires behave or spin at different speeds, which is what unlocking would be in a differential. So treat this car as if it's completely locked. What you're trying to shoot for when cornering it, to get that really good, nice, speedy wheel slip altogether in the rears is about 10%. That's maximum grip of the tires, 10 to 15%. So it looks like we were right about there for a lot of the corners, and it unlocked it a couple of times here at looks like Tamburello. No, I'm sorry, that's Villeneuve, and then we have Ravazza. It unlocks. I think that was probably coming out the curve. But the thing to take from this is you got to treat the rear drive wheels of the Caterham Supersport as if they're completely locked, because that's how they behave. So that's the Caterham Supersport. It's a fabulous car to learn car mechanics from a driver's perspective. It has everything. It's playful, light, forgiving. At least the Supersport is. You can really start using the wheel with this car. Just go back and forth, loosen up your arms, have a little fun. As far as the channel update is concerned, I'm going to be switching to a more relaxed schedule moving on. But don't worry, regular content will be released, just not on a Wednesday, Saturday schedule. It's sort of a summer break, I suppose. Next up, we'll have a Sigma P1 build where the default setup is really good, but I found something interesting that may make it better on more tracks. In the meantime, thanks for watching and take care.
Take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you go.